Only the jury knew as the moment arrived the verdict in the O.J. Simpson case.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of...
Simpson, home tonight, a free man.
From NBC News, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. By now, the news is well known, but many questions remain. How did the jury decide that O.J. Simpson was not guilty on all counts? And as he celebrates at his home tonight, what is the future for this most famous murder defendant ever now that he's free? What of his children? Can the Goldman family find the justice they're seeking in a civil suit against Simpson? The verdict is in, but the story is not over. Tonight, NBC's David Bloom on this remarkable day, and Maria Shriver, who is just outside the O.J. Simpson estate in Brentwood, where a party is underway. We'll be talking to Maria shortly, but we begin with David Bloom, who has covered the trial from the beginning.
Tom, O.J. Simpson walked into Judge Lancito's courtroom this morning, uncertain as to whether he would spend much of the rest of his life in prison or go free.
Our four-person juror number one.
O.J. Simpson stared toward the jury. Defense attorney Johnny Cochran clasped his hands as if in prayer. And Robert Kardashian, Simpson's longtime friend and lawyer, looked toward the heavens. Then Simpson stood to face the mostly black jury as the verdicts were read.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information. Superior Court of the
From the family of murder victim Ronald Goldman, sobs of disbelief.
Count 2, is this your verdict? Jury number 12.
Sister Kim Goldman weeping uncontrollably, embraced by her father Fred, even as O.J. Simpson's family, a few feet away, rejoiced. Simpson's daughter Arnell smiling, his son Jason slumped in tears. The defense team gathered as if in a victory huddle. Fred Goldman stunned, shaken. Prosecutors stone-faced, as Simpson mouthed a thank you to the jury and clenched his fist in triumph, a free man after 474 days behind bars.
All right, the defendant having been acquitted of both charges, he is ordered transported to an appropriate sheriff's facility and released forthwith.
20 minutes later, Simpson was back at the jail to retrieve his belongings, and then, in a scene eerily reminiscent of last year's low-speed Bronco chase, Simpson, this time in a white minivan, but again pursued by news helicopters, arrived home at his Rockingham Estates, where he was embraced by A.C. Collins, Simpson's best friend, who'd been behind the wheel of the Bronco 16 months before.
First, I want to thank God.
At a courthouse press conference called by the defense and Simpson's elated family, his mother spoke.
Well, I was always in prayer. I knew that my son was innocent.
His sister spoke.
And I tell you, I just feel like standing on top of this table and dancing a jig. And I just want to thank you guys.
And eldest son Jason read a statement from his father.
I'm relieved that this part of the incredible nightmare that occurred on June 12, 1994 is over. My first obligation is to my young children, who will be raised the way that Nicole and I had always planned. But when things have settled a bit, I will pursue, as my primary goal in life, the killer or killers who slaughtered Nicole and Mr. Goldman. They are out there somewhere. Whatever it takes to identify them and bring them in, I'll provide somehow.
Defense attorney Johnny Cochran, who'd compared former Detective Mark Furman to Adolf Hitler, and who'd asked jurors to strike a blow against racism and police corruption, defended his tactics.
This stuff about playing a race card is preposterous. It would malpractice if a man has racist views in a case and a lawyer doesn't pursue that.
But prosecutors were aghast. Los Angeles District Attorney Gil Garcetti, his confidence gone, his voice wavering.
This was an emotional trial, and apparently their decision was based on emotion. That overcame the reason.
a subdued Marcia Clark,
please don't let this make you lose faith in our system,
and accepting Christopher Darden.
But I'm not bitter, and I'm not angry.
It was too much for the emotionally racked Darden to take. He left the room shortly before Fred Goldman spoke.
This prosecution team didn't lose today. I deeply believe that this country lost today. Justice was not served.
Simpson still faces a possible custody battle for his young children and wrongful death suits filed by the victims' families. But tonight, they were celebrating at his Rockingham estate, truth and justice being in the eyes of the beholder. David Bloom, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Thank you, David. Now let's go back to Maria Shriver, who is just outside the Rockingham estate, where she has been able to have some conversations, at least, with members of the Simpson party. What's going on inside, Maria, as far as we can understand it?
Well, there is a party going on here, as David Bloom said, Tom. There are helicopters overhead trying to get any glimpse of O.J. Simpson that they possibly can. Balloons have been arriving here, big multicolored bunches, flowers, wheelbarrows full of flowers, friends, relatives. O.J. Simpson's sisters came out a little earlier in the day, thumbs up to the media, thanked everybody, said they wanted to talk. They couldn't. You see a lot of jubilation going here, a very different situation than you saw at the DA's office. And Larry Schiller told me that O.J. Simpson would talk to the media in a couple of days. Right now, he wanted to get some rest, see his friends, see his family. Tom?
All right. Thanks very much, Maria Shriver. There's also one report that he will be going on to Cabo San Lucas, which is on the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. It's an old haunt for Robert Kardashian, his good friend. As for the jury, the 10 women and 2 men told the judge they didn't want to discuss this case with the lawyers or the news media, and they headed for their homes immediately after the verdict was read. And as NBC's Kelly O'Donnell tells us tonight, so far, for the most part, they are keeping their word. So far.
The Simpson jury is not ready to give up one of Judge Ito's admonitions, the rule not to discuss the case.
You have also indicated to the court unanimously a desire not to speak to the attorneys after the conclusion of the trial, and not to speak with the news media either.
Crews of photographers wait outside their homes, but most of the 12 jurors' whereabouts remain a mystery. Juror number 7, Brenda Morgan, uneasy about talking.
I think we did the right thing. You know, matter of fact, I know we did.
Prosecutors don't understand it or why the jury refused to explain it to them.
We want to hear from the jurors before we make any other comments concerning their decision today.
The daughter of foreperson Armanda Cooley is relieved.
It's been a very long haul, and like I said, we're just very happy that this has finally come to a conclusion.
Whatever their verdict, the homecoming is well earned. Consider this. O.J. Simpson served only 108 days longer than his jury. He spent 474 days in jail. The jury lived under lock and key 266 days. Their privileges were different, too. Simpson was allowed lots of visitors and private phone calls. But jurors sequestered at this luxury downtown hotel had their calls and outside contact closely monitored by guards. In exchange for their service, each juror was paid $5 a day. They've been gone so long, that added up to about $1,300 each. Simpson is back home, his house surrounded by press. Tonight, the jury of his peers finds the cameras waiting for them, too. Kelly O'Donnell, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.